So John Hull comes in. Buschini will hold his hand down at the 29-yard line. It's a 39-yard field goal try with 3:03 left to play in the fourth. Trying to break a 24-all tie. Snap is down. The kick is on his way, and the kick is no good. He hooked it wide to the left, and the game remains tied at 24-all. So now first down and goal for Illinois. Fagan is still in there.
High discipline. We've seen this formation.
Snap, and the pass, and the receiver is wide open. That's Bryant off to the right side. Touchdown.
I don't know how many times they're going to fall for that. Now they got to go score.
Fourth down and 29. Emmett Johnson is the setback. You've got three Huskers wide to the right side. Raiola, he's got it. Pressure right up the middle, and down he goes, and that'll do it. Illinois has come to Lincoln and shocked the Huskers. 31-24 in overtime. Illinois has won it.
We came out. We predicted that they'd come out and be spread no huddle like they were. In the second half, they really for a long time it was only, I think at halftime they had 31 yards rushing. I think in the second half they ran for over 100 yards. So they just kind of did what they did last week. We didn't seem to be the more physical team. We did win the turnover battle today. The defense took the ball away twice, but couldn't get off the field. I thought we had a really hot offense there for a while, and just would have loved to have gotten them the ball a little bit more. They sat for long stretches. And then obviously penalties really hurt us on defense. I think there was 3 drives with a 15-yarder, which is unfortunate.
Welcome to Severe Reaction here on 1620 The Zone. It is delayed, obviously, after a Friday night loss to Illinois, 31-24. I am Michael Severe, joined by producer Joey, who chooses violence in the opening set of the highlights. He chooses all the bad ones right in a row to demonstrate what happened in the loss.
Pretty much a summary of what happened.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I definitely think so. Yeah. Only thing you could have included would have been the interception in the end zone. But that's a really long highlight because it was first a interception, then it was a catch, then it was an interception again. So that would have taken a while. As I mentioned, as we always mention, 402-951-1620. That is the phone number for you to call to be a part of the show. We are brought to you by Equitable Bank. We take banking personally, and brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. Join our team at nebraskamed.com/careers. Man, this studio over the years has seen a lot of misery, especially over the last 7 or 8 years. A lot of it. It's usually big red overreaction following a gut-wrenching loss. Many of those, now 8 of them in overtime. And it happened again on Friday night. Another time where people are calling upset or depressed or angry, or however you want your emotions to be. Not happy is the one mainly we talk about. Even some games where, like last week, where the calls were, we said nitpicking, right? You were just picking nits, saying, leaky yardage, it's no big deal. They still won by 31 points. Everything's fine. So anyway, that all changed Friday night, right? People look at the black shirts and they say, well, they can't stop the run when they have to. I'm not sure Nebraska can run the ball when it needs to. And more than anything else, they can't fix the special teams. So you throw all 3 of those together in a Big Ten game, and you get what you got on Friday night, a 31-24 loss. Truly, overtime has been an ultimate nightmare for the University of Nebraska. This is a team, by the way, if you go back and look, that won 7 or 8 overtime games in a row, and now can't even score. We'll go over the numbers later, but they have more interceptions than they have positive yardage overtimes. They have 4 interceptions. I think they have 4 positive yardage overtimes. We'll go over the numbers a little bit later, but it's incredible to think about that it could be that bad, that for whatever reason, when overtime starts, Nebraska finishes like completely, like can't do anything. But we always talk about the good too. We got a lot of that on the show, along with some of the bad, some stats we always look at to kind of see where Nebraska is and kind of gauge how they're doing. And some of the good stuff is, two guys had to come off the bench for two of the better positions this season, and both of them played maybe better than the starters were playing, which is good. We'll get to more of that, of course. But you have, how many times is Nebraska going to be in a situation where they're playing against a team, and in the end, when you give the check mark in one of the three phases, it's the check mark going to the opponent in special teams over and over and over and over. No one, there's nobody on this planet I've heard talk more about the third phase in my 22 years of living here in Nebraska than Tom Osborne. He talks about it all the time. He still talks about it all the time. Yet and still, we're in a situation where I think only two of the last, going back to 2012, 2014, only two of those years did Nebraska finish in the top four in their conference in special teams. On the other hand, 8 of them, they finished in the bottom 4, and two of them, they fell at the very bottom. This is a team that, for whatever reason, can't get special teams right. No matter if they have a special teams coordinator dedicated to it, a very good coach we've seen have success with special teams before, for whatever reason, they can't get that straight. So here we are on a Sunday morning. Nebraska sitting at 3-1, coming off another overtime loss, heading to Purdue for the first road game. Now, Purdue is playing like crap. We'll go over them later in the show. They're as bad as they can be of any team in the Big Ten, believe it or not. But you got a freshman going on the road for the first time, so you still get a little nervous. You get a little worried, right? Man, it's crazy to think that if Nebraska makes really literally one play, if Dylan Raiola makes a throw to Luke Lindenmeyer, the Papillion La Vista kid, and he makes the catch, and Nebraska goes up 7, and then plays some good defense for the last 3 minutes of the game, we're sitting here, and Nebraska's 4-0, and everybody's like, ooh, it's a rough one. But they took care of business in the 400 sellout. Remember, they lost the first sellout in 1962. They won the 50th, the 100th, the 150, the 200, the 250, the 300, 350, and the 400 they lose. It's crazy. Crazy to think about. It really is. 402-951-1620 is the phone number. We will kick it off with Andrew. Good morning, Andrew. How are you doing on this Sunday morning?
Good. How you doing, Mr. Severe?
I am really good. Do you have a hoodie on right now?
No, I do not.
Oh, it's hoodie weather, man. It's wonderful. Wonderful, Andrew.
It is hoodie weather. Hey, I think you called it. I think you were talking before the game with the crew, and you said a close game like this is going to come down to special teams, and it did.
Yeah.
When is, I don't think it's a talent gap. I think it's the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And when is the mindset going to change? I mean, they say it does, but I mean, we need to get to the point that we're going to impose our will on you.
Yeah.
And come up with some nastiness. And frankly, I don't see it in any of the offensive line. I don't see it in the defensive line. Maybe number 18, I can't say. I don't want to brutalize his name. He plays with his hair on fire a little bit. But I think that's truly what's lacking is, we got to get pissed.
Are you there, Andrew?
And play with a little fire.
Hey, what do you do for a living, Andrew? I don't know that. What do you do for a living?
I'm a teacher.
You're a teacher. Okay. Yeah. Tell me this. You're a teacher, and every year, right, your students don't pass the test they need to pass, right? In the end, you're going to think to yourself, man, I can't teach. And those students are going to think we can't learn. How do you convince a team that's lost as many times as they have, and there's a lot of guys on this team, that they can be winners? The only way you can do it is that, like for you, the kids to pass the test, for Nebraska to win the games. They have to figure out a way to get over the hump, and I don't know how you do that when all you know is losing these games. It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, and I don't know if, nowadays you've got to be careful how you motivate people.
Yes.
And maybe there's just, maybe the kids, When you and I grew up,
Yeah.
if we did something, there was a consequence.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's not that there, and maybe you sit them down. I don't know, and put the next player in, but I don't know if that's the answer either on the football side of it.
Yeah. Andrew, we appreciate the call. It's good to hear from you. Get a hoodie on.
Well, take care, buddy.
All right, man, no doubt. Yeah, and you know what? I think Coach Rule does a really good job in terms of the way he disciplines when it comes to play on the field, and I think off the field as well. He proved that by Ramir Stewart being a little overweight and not putting him on the original 110 or 120, right? He's done that with Micah Mazuka with some stuff that he had off the field. He set him down. I've seen him bench many a player during a game because of poor play. James Williams was offsides. He came to the sideline. I think he does a very good job with that. But there's a limited amount. You have to have 22 guys total, and then you add the special teams guys playing on a consistent basis. You can't bench everybody, You can't bench the entire secondary, which for the most part, until Sierra Wright came in, was struggling. It really was. Safeties were struggling. Marquise Buford was struggling. Herzog had his moments, but he had a bad 15-yard penalty. You can't bench everybody, and that's the problem sometimes. But I think overall, when you look at the way Coach Rule has handled discipline and problems both on and off the field, I think he's done a pretty good job. I think all these years of being a head coach, he's learned how to, and I'm not even using the word motivate for it, just learned how to handle his starters, his reserves, everybody based off of how they're playing. Because that's somebody, when you produce, right, whether it's in radio, the afternoon show needs to have a certain amount of listeners or viewers now on YouTube or whatever to be able to prove that they're doing well. Same thing's true on the field. You have tape, and you have to prove with that tape that you're doing well. If not, then you don't play. That's just the way it works. And I think he's done a pretty good job with that. But again, you've got 140, I think it was close to 150 starts on that offensive line before Turner Corcoran got hurt. Are you benching those guys to bring in somebody who has never started, only has a couple starts? Now, give props to Gunnar Gatula for coming in and playing the way he did. I thought for the most part, outside of a couple plays, he played very well in a tough spot. But on the other hand, a lot of other guys who played a lot, who are considered to be captains, who are considered to be some of the best players on the team, really struggled in their first Big Ten matchup and against the best team they played, struggled in those games. Let's go back to the phones. 951-1620, 402-951-1620. That's where Don is this morning. Good morning, Don.
Good morning, Mike. Love the show.
Thanks,
Went to the game, had 45-yard line tickets, best tickets I ever had.
Nice.
Obviously, special teams stood out, like you said. The other thing, in the game day experience, you got Will Compton up there on the screen. I know the Bussin' with the Boys interview with Matt Rule was a big thing, and just trying to be ingenious and do some different things for the game day experience. But can somebody just turn that guy's microphone off? I mean, he's up here yelling about smash mouth football. It's just not. Nebraska is not a smash mouth football team. I mean, when are we going to realize that? Northern Iowa would be considered smash mouth. Illinois would be considered smash mouth. But Nebraska's passing the ball 63% of the time, and I get it. You got a gunslinger back there, strong arm, really good quarterback. So it makes sense. You got these good wide receiver transfers. But Nebraska is not going to be able to do that when it's 25 degrees. When I park my car and get out and go to that game in November and it's 25 degrees with 20-plus, 30-mile-an-hour winds, which I've been to several times, how are you going to throw the ball around the yard? This lack of commitment to the run. I mean, you look at what Michigan did last night, right? They ran for almost 300 yards. They ran it like 50 times.
Yep.
That's Big Ten football. Brett Bielema understands Big Ten football. He's got how many championships in the Big Ten, and it wasn't at Ohio State and it wasn't at Michigan. I think ever since Solich left, that's been the problem. Everybody went, and it's fun to watch throwing the ball around the yard, and they got the quarterback to do it. But it's not going to get you very far in the Big Ten, and that's just my quick comments. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Don. Thanks a lot. If you take the stats that I track, I always leave out the FCS teams. I like looking at team rankings, and they leave out the FCS teams. They just include the FBS teams. And really, when you look at Nebraska, they're 50-50. Right now, they're currently rushing at 51.8. So 52% of the time, they're running the ball. I'd like to see it higher personally. Last year, by the way, it was 62%. Let's find a happy median between that and rush at about 55%, in my opinion. I think that's where they should be. When you look at Illinois, so far through this season, they are sitting at they're at 53, almost 54%. So yes, definitely running at a higher percent than Nebraska. And last year, by the way, Illinois, when they couldn't run the ball, they were at 46%. So they're closer to where you want Nebraska to be. I don't think you'll get to that point in this season, only because you've got this 5-star quarterback. You've got these 2 big wide receivers. Hopefully, eventually, tight ends get involved in this damn thing, and they're getting the ball at the tight ends more, which definitely needs to happen. If all that happens, yes, you're going to throw the ball more than you're going to run it, because I think your offensive line's a better pass blocking offensive line than it is a running offensive line, which is kind of sad to think about it in Nebraska. But there's a lot of work to go. They're going to look. You want to turn the numbers around? They're going to have a huge day running the ball against Purdue. I have numbers for that later. They're going to have a huge day running the ball against Purdue, because again, Purdue yesterday gave up over 340 yards rushing. So they're going to do that. But can they maintain that through the season? And again, I gave you those 3 things. 3 things you have to do. You got to be able to run the ball when they know you're running it. You have to be able to stop the run when they want to run it. And you've got to be able to win special teams. That's how you win in the Big Ten. Even the day, you still have to do those things. If you're not Ohio State talent, or even Oregon at times talent, or over the last couple of years, Michigan's talent, what did they do yesterday? They couldn't move the ball in the second half. When they needed to drive, they got to drive. Was it throwing the ball? Hell no, it wasn't. It was running the ball. They won special teams. They stopped the run when they had to. And at the end, they ran the ball when they had to, and they beat USC. Go back to the phones, 402-951-16. Take one more call, and then we'll take a break. 951-1620. That's where Harry is this morning. Good morning, Harry.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, man.
I just wanted to chime in this morning. I don't have much time, but one thing that just seems to have been clouding all these seasons since Osborne's retired is just the lack of focus on the small things. And there's how many personal fouls did we have the other night? 3 or 4?
4.
And then you have running backs that I think they were like frozen in the backfield because they didn't know the play. And Dylan was trying to figure out where he's going to be.
Yep.
And I just think those things compile over time in a game. And it just, there's probably a lot of things that we can't fix right now. Some of it's personnel, some of it's coaching, but focus on those things that you can fix.
Yep.
And I just don't think we've done a very good job of that for the past 25, 26 years. And I just drives me nuts. And I'm sure, and there's plenty of other things we can, harp on about the team and this sort of thing, mistakes and attitude. And what do you do for, when a guy doesn't make a play?
Yeah.
God darn it. It just seems like we're just continually seeing the same stuff. And I don't care who it was, Solich, Pelini, Riley, Scott, and Matt. And I think Matt's done a really good job on a lot of things. I mean, turnovers way down, but gosh, these little mistakes are just, they rise up. And I mean, 3 face masks or just 2?
I think it's two face masks total. But like you said, it was 4 total personal fouls throughout the game.
Yeah. And one of them was a twisting face mask.
Well, they both were, and that's not even it's funny thing about that referee said that 3 times or 2 times. That's not even a call anymore. That's the old call when you had to worry about 15 or 5. Yes, it grabbed and he twisted. What does that matter? If you grab the face mask, that's all you have to do now to get 15. I didn't understand that guy. I couldn't understand that guy. That was very strange.
Yeah, I got it. But Jamari's just seemed like it was, his hand just got up around his face.
Yeah,
it happened.
Yep.
Was it Hartzog?
Hartzog, that made no sense. The guy's going down already.
Late.
Yeah.
Came in late and twist the face mask. You can't. Those are just, that's mental error. And we've got to cut down on those because those are just, guys like, I think earlier game we had Williams line up in the neutral zone and then we had encroachment on defense the other night. We're at home.
I know. It's quiet out there. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So anyways, I just, I think focus on the small things you can fix and, hopefully we get better over the season and maybe they can disguise some of the weaknesses, but
yeah,
got a lot uphill work to do. So
Hey, Harry, we appreciate
right,
the call.
that's all
All right, man.
Hey, you bet. Thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. Winning the penalty battle is not critical in college football. I hate to say that because I don't want anybody, but there's been a lot of good teams that have won a bunch of games that got a lot of penalties because of the way they played. Oregon's a great one of the greatest example. Oregon, lots of penalties, but because they had so much talent and the way they played, really didn't matter. It didn't matter if they were 3rd and 14 because they could still pick it up. Nebraska can't afford that. They just can't afford to make those silly penalties because the margin of victory and the margin of loss is too close. We'll take a quick break. Wyatt, stay right there. Gary, stay right there. We'll get to some of the comments in the YouTube as well when we come back here on Severe Reaction on 1620 The Zone.
Third down and 3. Nebraska needs the 18-yard line. Raiola lofts a pass toward the end zone, and it's too far out in front of Lindenmeyer, who was free in the end zone. And it falls incomplete, and it's 4th down and 3.
That is incredible.
You guys decided to do what you did. Obviously, it didn't work, but what was the thinking?
Yeah, it's wide open, though. I mean, it's a hell of a play call by Sat. And we're just trying to throw the ball to the fullback on the flat. We were doing kind of what you said, hey, we're gonna throw, show a run formation, throw the ball to the fullback on the flat. Dylan sees the guy. Dylan's vision is amazing. He sees, that's not really even part of the progression most times. It's such a good play call that no one's open. We just don't connect on it, and it's 4th and 3 at that point. And that's a makeable field goal. I felt like we would make that field goal. It looked like when I looked at it, the laces weren't turned out. They get to kick the laces, and it just wasn't made. So, yeah, I mean, I think we took the approach. It was a long 3. Like, hey, let's throw the ball to the fullback in the flat. Just a guy popped wide open, and in a game like this, you want to win those games. I think you just hope that you come down with that play.
I saw Luke run wide open, and I don't know, I missed a throw, win the game, and that was our chance to go win the game. So I'll take this game on my back, and I got to get better and be better for our team, and put us in position to win.
Welcome back to Severe Reaction. Delayed Severe Reaction on a Sunday coming off of the Friday loss. So that was that standard West Coast play, right, where they always joke about the spider 2 wide banana or whatever, but you stick that fullback out of the backfield, out of I formation. Traditionally, he's open, and that's good. But if you see somebody breaking open because they don't cover the tight end because he's now in their scouting report and he gets into the end zone, you got to make that throw, And I'm sure that's going to stay with Dylan for a long time. He seems like the kind of guy that his successes probably roll off his back and his failures are probably something he stays with. That's what makes people that are successful many times. And so I think he'll be that guy that remembers that and doesn't let it happen to him again because of who he is. Let's get back to the phones, 402-951-1620. That's where Wyatt is this morning. Good morning, Wyatt. How many of your kids are yelling right now?
Evan, they're upstairs in their rooms right now, so I'm trying to keep it quiet today.
Nice. What's up?
But yeah, I can see Evan yelling on the monitor. But anyway, my question is, I hate to say this, 3 games into the season, but is Ed Foley kind of becoming the Doc Sadler of the group here, where he's kind of like the nice old coach that we all like, but the results really aren't where we want them to be? Because last year obviously we had the kicking issues of punting and field goal, and then this year we're still getting little things. Every time we punt or kick off, I get a little nervous that they're going to have a big return, and with the snapping now, the holding, and obviously kicking still isn't where we want it to be. So I'm a little concerned in that area.
Yeah, it's funny. Based off what you do for a living, special teams is the systematic problem that the sewer system is for Nebraska, for Omaha. You're just constantly got these holes in the road because they're having to dig it up because you're having all these problems with sewer mains. That's Nebraska's issue with special teams. It's constantly just these holes, all the time. And so I don't know. We can say it's Ed Foley, but we got this thing where it just seems like it's Nebraska's tradition to be that way. But he's been good in other places, He's been good. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just kind of concerned. And then because we know that Alvano would seem like a surefire stud coming in, and obviously with injuries, but he does seem to be injured ever since he got there.
Yeah,
and clearly hasn't been what we hoped he would be.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Wyatt, I appreciate it, man. Have a good Sunday.
All right, you too. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. So there's a couple things on this. You expected Tristan Alvano to be your guy. He was going to be your guy, even though he struggled last year. They knew he had to have the procedure on his groin. He had to come off of that. You're expecting that. You bring in Nico. You bring him in. Atamanelli, you bring him in. And then you're saying, well, he's a little erratic in the offseason, so you need to bring in somebody else. So you bring kind of a walk-on who hasn't played football in a while. And John Hull is kicking great in practice, and you feel pretty good. I watched him before the game. He had a 58-yarder right down the middle in the warm-ups. Atamanelli hit a couple of really long ones in the warm-ups too. You got to do it in the game. Brian Buschini had an amazing day kicking the ball, except for one out of the 3 was kicked to the opposite side where they were trying to kick it. And because of that, you had a 37-yard or 39-yard return. It's little things. You have to be perfect in special teams. One mistake in special teams can cost you the game. It's crazy to think about. You can make a bunch of mistakes on defense. You can make a bunch of mistakes on offense. For whatever reason, making mistakes on special teams is compounded because when you make that mistake, many times it costs you games. Go back to the phones. Go to Gary. He's been holding the longest. Good morning, Gary. How are you doing?
Good morning. How consequently you guys are talking about field goal kickers.
Yeah.
Transfer portal doesn't open up till December, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And we better go get some NIL money, go get that South Florida kicker who kicks a 67-yarder, or go get the Temple guy who kicks a 54-yarder.
Right.
That's all I got to say. Thank you.
I understand. I was talking to somebody last night about that. What are you going to do? You hope that Tristan Alvano can get healthy and be your kicker. That's your hope. But you always got to have a backup to your plan, right? Got to have a backup plan. The backup plan, maybe it is go in the portal and find somebody who would either a graduate transfer, get them that way, or get them out of the portal, and you bring them in and say, look, I need a kicker that I can count on from every distance, but especially inside 40. Inside 40 in today's football, across the board, high school on up, that's a gimme. The way field goal kicking is now, that's a gimme. You shouldn't miss those. And you're missing those. You're missing field goals inside of 40. You just can't do that. And whatever it takes, whether it is getting a graduate transfer to come in here who's had success or going in the portal and taking somebody from a lower level and bringing them in to be your kicker. So we've seen it across the board. Big schools have gone out and getting these guys who you go find the MAC kicker of the year, the Southland kicker of the year, the Sun Belt kicker of the year, whoever. And you go, you know what? I got a bag of cash for you. Come kick for us. You see it across college football. Let's go to Old Man Doug. I think this is Old Man Doug. Hey, Doug, what's up? Not Old Man Doug. Hello?
It's not, bro, but I apologize, man. What's up with you, bro?
Oh, okay. What's happening, man? How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, bro. But I'm saying when you're getting field goals after they're getting touchdowns, even if it's in the first quarter, bro, I think that leads to problems. And
yep,
you could end up missing your next field goal.
Yeah. Would you have – ask me this. So after the pass is missed into the end zone and you got 4th and 3, you're struggling field goal kicking, do you send the field goal kicker out there or do you go for it on 4th down? Now, I know what happened, but, like, at the time, would you have gone for it?
Yeah, probably. But maybe not, bro. But the thing is that you gotta, you gotta know when you take a field goal, you got a chance to miss, bro, and they got a chance to score a touchdown.
Yep.
So you just kind of decrease your odds from winning. But then I also wanted to ask you about the running back rotation, and then. For me, bro, it kind of reminded me of like Buddy Ryan. You remember when he went to go punch Gil Bryant in the nose, bro?
Yeah.
When the defense made that last, I think it was a sack and a fumble.
Yep. Sierra Wright.
I was like, bro, okay. And then still. But and then here's my other thing, though, right? The quarterback, he had a couple turnovers. And then he started getting sacked. So I wanted to know, was that more from him just being a true freshman? Did they get the Bambi eyes, or did the line just wear down, or did the defense just heat up? And because I think, bro, when he's in his 4th game.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
You need seniors on there that's been there for 4 years to put it on their shoulders, bro. You cannot have in his 4th game, he got to put the program on his shoulders, bro.
Yep.
Because now he's going to try to do Superman stuff, and we don't necessarily need that. And the last thing I want to ask you about, bro, was James Madison. Where did they come from, bro?
Oh, they were FCS program, and they moved up. I think it's 3 years now.
Man, it looked like they put a basketball score up on
70 to 50. I know.
Yeah, and then one more thing I want to ask you. When Colorado went to overtime, did you know they were going to win?
I really felt, yeah. I mean, they had all the momentum,
Yeah,
they had all the momentum.
Too, man. But when we went to overtime, did you feel like we was going to win?
No, I've been here for a while. I did not.
All right, bro. Appreciate you.
No, I appreciate that too. Yeah, there's a bunch in there. But I will say this. Dylan Raiola came here to be that guy. He came here to be him. He wants that. He wants that on his back. That last possession in overtime, you had the offsides, which put them behind the sticks. Then you had they ran a stunt over the right side or left side of the offensive line, and that stunt worked. The second down play, the whole right side of the defensive line got beat, and then on the third play, on the 4th down, they did an A-gap blitz that didn't get blocked. So, yeah, it was – I don't think it was on Dylan. I think it was more on, for whatever reason, the offensive line. And I think they knew once you have the penalty – and you're at 1st and 15 from the 30, I think they anticipated that Nebraska wasn't going to run it, so they ran their game, and the game worked. You run a game and Nebraska runs it in that gap, they probably gained 15 yards. But they didn't. They went back to pass. So we got to take a quick break. We'll come back. Paul, Jim, Bob, stay right there. Quick break, right back here on Severe Reaction.
trailing it 7-3. Snap back to Raiola. Play action, looks into the end zone. That ball is caught. Touchdown! Isaiah Nair hauled it in from Dylan Raiola, and Nebraska's got the lead. 1st and 10, Nebraska. The ball spotted at the Illini 11-yard line. 23 seconds remaining. Nebraska 2 timeouts left. Ramir Johnson is the tailback. He goes in to a pass pattern, and Raiola is going to throw it to the end zone. It's caught. Is it a touchdown? Yes.
How about those receivers? Maybe Coach McGuire's back to being a good coach again. The interception, we had some doubts. The touchdown reception, he's good again.
Isaiah Nair makes the catch in traffic on the near side of the end zone and makes the grab. Thomas Fedoni was over there, a trio of Illini, and it's Nair who makes the touchdown grab.
Hey, you want to be challenged by your coach? Go make a play.
Let this one hurt for a day or two and move on from it. But it's the same preparation every week, win, lose, or draw. And when you come up short, you really find out what your team's about. So we'll come in tomorrow, watch the tape, Sunday, watch the tape, and get ready to go next week.
Welcome back to Sphere Reaction here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Equitable Bank, where we take banking personally, and brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. Join our team at nebraskamed.com/careers. That was, of course, Dylan Raiola there at the end talking about how you handle adversity, how you handle losses, and he's completely right. There's nothing you can do. You can spend a couple of hours. There's nothing wrong with lying in your own misery. There's nothing wrong with that. You do it for a little while, and then you bounce back, and you attack it. When the morning comes and your feet hit the floor, you're on fire. That's what you got to be every day, every damn day, no matter how bad the day before was. That's what you have to do. If you don't, then you're going backwards. So they got to be able to figure out what they did wrong, fix it. I had some people being critical of Matt Rule saying he wouldn't get rid of Coach Foley. He's fired coaches. Matt Rule's a guy that's moved his staff around. A guy named Satterfield used to coach for him and then didn't coach for him. So, I don't think he has a problem evaluating a staff and letting guys go. He's done it many times. He fired his offensive coordinator in Carolina in the middle of the season. He got rid of John Brady. So, dude, he will get rid of people. Don't worry about that. If there's a problem and he thinks there's a problem in his staff, he'll move a guy. That's not something I have to worry about with Coach Rule. Let's go back to the phones, 402-951-1620. That's where Paul is this morning. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing all right, man. I like the cool weather.
Yeah, I do too. It was nice. It's a big change. I travel from out of town from the southwest, and so all this humidity was really killing me.
I bet.
What I wanted to talk about was the offensive line. You kind of ended the last call talking about the offensive line in overtime, but I'd go all the way back to the first quarter in that our tackles were just getting embarrassed by their rush end.
Mm-hmm.
Just embarrassed. A couple times Corcoran didn't even get a hand on him. And one time I think Benhart missed getting in front of him and just kind of ran next to him for a little bit, and then the guy just pushed him out of the way and pressured the quarterback.
He was behind him, right? Isn't that the weirdest play? Have you ever seen that before where a guy is trying to block him with his backside? That was the weirdest play. I had to rewind it twice.
It really was.
Yeah.
It was so weird. It's like, well, I kind of said, well, at least he did something. He just didn't stop. He tried to stay with him.
Yep.
At least that was something.
Yep.
But it goes back, all through this winter, I heard everybody saying, well, our offensive line is going to be better because they're experienced. And I kept looking back for the last 2 years, and the offensive line has not been good the last 2 years. So what magic wand and saying bibbity bobbity boop would make them good just because of having experience at being bad? So I was always questioning the whole offensive line experience thing. And I think, this this exposure to Big Ten defense kind of exposed them that they're not necessarily ready for prime time.
Yeah.
And it still concerns me, and we're not going to get running lanes opened, and we're not going to be able to protect Raiola without improving that offensive line somehow. And then another thing that was concerning was, again, the wide receiver blocking. Sometimes I saw one tight end, I forget which one it was, he blocked his man twice and kind of stopped, and then the guy ran past him and made the tackle. It was like, why did you stop?
Yeah,
kind of thing. There was a lot of things in there in that whole blocking scheme that seems to come up, and it came up a little bit, in the first 3 games, but it was really exposed during that game. It just came up, and it was just kind of shocking. It was like, well, I was hoping for better, but
yeah,
hopefully the coaching will get back to it, and we'll see some improvement. And then again, I've never been a big Satterfield fan, but
yeah.
I still look at some of those calls when you're 1st and 5 at the goal line, or 1st and 3, or whatever, and then we run once and pass twice. Just really is a head scratcher to me. And then I understand the offenses are really varied now, much more than when I was young. But something's got to be there. If we can't muscle up and move 3 yards, or muscle up and move 5 yards, does that say more about our offensive line than play calling, or play calling and offensive line, or both?
Yeah, I appreciate the call. I think both. On that second down pass, or the pass to Rahmir, the ball's got to get out right away, and Rahmir's got to catch it right at the goal line and walk in the end zone. And then he faded out of bounds, which is a horrible thing to do for a guy who's been around that long. But if Raiola sees that right away and throws it, it's an easy touchdown. It's a walk-in touchdown. But I agree with you. You'd figure a guy the size of Dante Dowdell behind that offensive line, 3 runs, even if you get a yard each, you're in the end zone eventually. I do think occasionally Dowdell looks to run to contact when there's some open space, which is a little concerning. So you know what? I think that you give Emmett Johnson a chance to run in there. He's a smaller back, but I think he's better at seeing the holes. I think Rahmir Johnson's better at seeing the holes as well. There's not a lot of things that I think Gabe Ervin does better than the other 3 backs, but I think from the goal line, I think Gabe Ervin's a better back. I think he'd give him a better chance to score there because he, again, gets skinny, finds the hole. Not really what Dowdell does as much. So you gotta run your guys the way they can run. Talk about this all the time. Watch the way Illinois handle it and the way they rotated their backs for certain. There's horses for courses, right? There's backs for tracks. And that's what you have to do. You got to put your back in on the right play call, something they do well. Not every back runs whether it's single back or I back or your loaded pistol, whatever. Not everybody runs as well from that set or that call. You have to make sure that you put your back in the right spot. And I'm not sure they did that at all on Friday night. And I've said this over and over again. I just don't get Satterfield as a play caller a lot of times. That's what Coach Rule wants, so that's what they have. But I've questioned that since the very beginning. I don't get it, but that's what they're with right now. Let's go back to the phones. Before we take a quick break, we'll go to Jim. Good morning, Jim. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing fine, Michael. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, listen, I want to say a lot to these naysayers. First of all, I think Raiola is the man.
Yeah.
And the problem that he had, and it's just inexperience. But first of all, he doesn't have an offensive line, but we haven't had an offensive line for over 8 years. You want to run smash mouth football? Well, we had Riley and then we had Frost. They didn't have offenses that used smash mouth football, and you're not going to be able to develop a line overnight. But the thing about Raiola, there were a couple plays that he had a couple receivers crossing, and I was watching the game on TV, so I couldn't see. But one he threw behind the receiver, and I think if he would have hit him in stride, that thing would have gone to the house.
Yeah, twice he did that. Once to Carter Nelson and once to Nair. I saw. Yeah, he did that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Nair could have. I couldn't see it, and I don't have the opportunity to watch the films, but that would have been at least a 30 or 40-yard gain.
I agree.
If he doesn't, if it's not a touchdown. And the other thing are the receivers that we have, they need to understand when they go up for the ball, they need to grab it because we have a quarterback that's throwing to them, and we've had 2 receivers lose balls to defenders, and I think they've never been there before because we never had a quarterback that can do that. And in the past, a quarterback would not throw that ball any other quarterback, but Raiola can.
Yeah.
And when you go up for the ball, you got to bring it down.
Yep. Got to hold on to it through the catch.
You've got to make the catch. And the other thing, before I hang up, is one thing that Raiola needs to understand and learn, and I don't think he's going to make the same mistake again, is when you have a wide open receiver, you don't throw the ball to the receiver on a rope. You give him air and you let him run underneath it, because the worst you're going to ever have is you're going to have a pass interference call on the defender. So that's all I've got to say, Michael, and I love your show. I'll
Appreciate
talk
it,
to you
Jim.
later.
Thanks a lot. Going back to the offensive line, because I wanted to get this after, I think it was Paul who called. So the reason why people thought that the offensive line was going to be better is because Ben Hart played better last year. I mean, he really upped his game. And then they thought, well, they bring Mazuka in to play that left guard spot, right? Or the right guard spot, however you want to do it. You got Ben Scott, who played really well last year. I think they thought, you know what? You got you originally thought that it was going to be Teddy Prohaska at left tackle. And then even though Corcoran ended up being the starter, they thought Corcoran was playing better during the offseason. So, and then Justin Evan Jenkins, who's now just Justin Evans, had a really nice second half of the year last year. That was the hope. But yesterday, you had no Corcoran out there, who was playing poorly to start. You have Mazuka, who's been benched, and Benhart didn't have his best game, and Evans had probably his worst game at guard. So, yeah, it did not play out like we thought it would going into the season. We'll take another break. We'll come back here. Sam and Bob will come right back here, take your calls as soon as we get back here on Severe Reaction.
Fagan, the leading ball carrier for Illinois with 42 coming in. Here's another pass from the receiver. Wide open. It's caught. Touchdown by Pat Bryant. An impressive drive by Bryant. Got separation from Tommy Hill, and he had 2 steps on him. And Altmaier put it out there perfectly, and this crowd is quieted.
Yeah, so much for the premise of playing behind, just winning off the line of scrimmage. Not sure what T. Hill saw. He got spun around and almost seemed to quit on the play.
I mean, Dylan was like, "Hey, we were gonna take a shot the first play, and we false started. So kind of just we false started, and then took a sack, and then even on the last one we missed a blitz pick, we missed the protection. We had an MA, so the moment showed up, and we didn't make the plays you have to make to win those games. I mean, even the ball that they called a touchdown that was ended up being an interception. We had a lot of opportunities to win the game, and so we're not a bad football team. It's a good football team. It's a ranked team, and we had all of our we had the chances we had to win. So there's some things we have to correct, and getting those moments we have to kind of go make those plays. Make those plays. I thought Sack called an excellent game. We had lots of chances, and I think defensively we have to go back and kind of look and see, hey, were we doing the right things?
That play by Tommy Hill on the first touchdown, I think that really showed that he was aching, that he was hurt, and that foot was bothering him. And then you saw it again about probably 5 or 6 plays later when Illinois had the ball. You saw the same thing. So that's why I think he left the game. I think his foot was really bothering him with the plantar fasciitis, and that's why he had to leave the game. But, the positive is that Sierra Wright came in and played well. He had the one holding call, but then from there, pretty good coverage rate, and he rushed they sent him, I think, 4 total times. He had a couple pressures, and of course he had the strip fumble as well on the sack. So he played very well. That was one of the positives from the game. As you lose your best corner, he goes out, and the next guy that comes in plays as well. Let's go back to the phones before the top of the hour when we get to Stephen M. Sipple. Let's go to Bob. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, guys, how are you?
Good, man.
Good. Hey, just a couple of quick things.
Mm-hmm.
Defense really had a hard time getting off the field on third and longs. And it seemed to me, and maybe I'm crazy, but many of those conversions were the same play over the middle.
Yep.
Out of different formations, and with the same result. And literally, there wasn't a linebacker in sight. There wasn't a cover guy anywhere even close.
Yep.
Which is very concerning to me. Tommy Hill, I question whether he should have even started. Plantar fasciitis is very, very painful.
Yep.
I props to him for wanting to be there for his team, but inevitably, if you can't play, you're ultimately hurting your team. And I heard Damon say it. He said it looked like Tommy gave up on the play.
Yep.
I'm not sure he meant to give up on the play. I just think he was in a lot of pain, which leads me to believe that there's some questions from the defensive side of the ball on the coaching staff. You can't do that. That's a liability.
Yep.
I mean, I know he's your best defender, but somebody's got to make that call and say, "Hey, kid, we're going to put Wright in there to start the game, and that's our best option." You just said it. Wright had a great game. In fact, that holding call, that's a questionable call in my opinion. I didn't see it. Maybe I didn't see the right angle. So I guess my question to you is, do you think maybe the kids weren't on the defensive side of the ball playing up to snuff, or was it a coaching thing? I think maybe Tony White got out coached a little bit. I really do. And then the last thing I want to say is, Nebraska football is definitely taking some steps forward. I think we all believe that.
Yep.
And I'm going to go with the ultimate goal this year for Nebraska. Everybody has to remember is a bowl game.
Right.
6-7 wins. Let's not get all spun up. Let's not get all upside down because we lost one game. We got a true freshman quarterback that has some of the best promise I've seen in years.
Yep.
This kid is going to be the real deal. We've got some great receivers. So I just want to hear your opinion on Tony White. And then, man, we got to clean up these penalties, guys. We just really, really do. Stupid penalties in crucial situations.
Yep.
So I'd love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. I appreciate it. One thing, and I was talking with a friend of mine. We were watching the games last night, and he mentioned how, and I'm going to ask Sip about this coming up in the next hour. We haven't seen the kind of juice we saw in the Colorado game. The defense had so much juice, and I use that word because that's literally what it was. I mean, they just were flying around. They were making plays. Their hair was on fire, and you didn't see that against Northern Iowa. You didn't see it Friday night. And I know you prepared the entire offseason to beat Colorado. I know they did, and they were ready for Colorado. Now you have teams who are going to run the ball at you, and they don't have the same juice. And how much of a concern is that going forward? I completely agree with you. The penalties are silly. You can make penalties and still win if you have better talent than the other team. If it's even, you're going to lose games. That's the way it works. And if your special teams is not good and you have penalty problems, you're in trouble. Real quick before we take a break, we'll go to Sam joining us here on Severe Reaction. What's up, Sam?
Hey, Michael, really enjoy the show.
Thanks, man.
Just a few thoughts here. One, I think you probably already mentioned it, but to win games in the Big Ten, you got to control the line of scrimmage, both offensively, being able to run the ball, defensively, being able to stop it.
Yep.
Quick question. I want to get your opinion on this. I think it's easy to look at it this way right now through 4 games, but do you think maybe in the second half of those first 3 games, it was mismanaged a little bit? And what I mean by that is, offensively in the second half, you didn't really see, them put the ball in the end zone, run the ball effectively. And then defensively, you rotated a lot, which is great, but those starters, right? They didn't get the snaps and the reps. And you saw against Illinois on Friday, tackling fell off. Defensively, that line got pushed around in the second half, right, for all those Illinois rush yards. And you just don't get that in practice, right? You don't get those reps. You're not tackling to the ground right now in the season. I guess what are your thoughts on that?
I like both your points. So going back to the run game, when you look at that, Nebraska in the second half, the total, the 4 running backs for Illinois averaged 5.25 yards a carry and 147 yards. And in the second half of the game, where you're talking about, well, whether or not Nebraska was good enough because they didn't get enough reps, rush yards 129 on 26 carries. That's 5 yards a pop. So, yes, they dominated the second half, the line of scrimmage. I've been saying the 3 things you have to do in the Big Ten is you have to run the ball when they know you're going to run it. You have to be able to stop it when they want to run it, and you got to play good special teams. Everything else can come around that, but those 3 things you have to do in the Big Ten, and Nebraska hasn't done that. And maybe a part of it is that those guys weren't used to being out there for as many reps as they were, and it's opposite of resting them. They just didn't have enough juice at the end. Yes, they got pushed around by Illinois at the end of the game. It wasn't even really close. Illinois rotates a lot too, but their 2 best ends, dominated Nebraska. The interior guys, who I think are average, had really good games as well. And the linebackers, who we saw through their first 2 games kind of get abused by Kansas and by Central Michigan, Nebraska couldn't take advantage of that. And going back real quick before we take a break, one of the things that one of the callers said was talking about the same route essentially in terms of picking up third downs. And I was looking at the third down numbers. Yeah, they had about 6.3 yards to go on third down, which it's not bad, it's not horrible, but 5 of 7 passing on third down for 75 yards. That is eating you up. You go 5 of 7 for 75 yards on third down. You do that on defense against an offense, you're going to lose games. You're going to lose games. They average 8.3 yards gained on third down. Passing almost 10. So every time they attempted a pass, they almost got a first down. We'll take a break. We'll come back more from Steve Sipple here on Severe Reaction.
Banks in motion to the near side. Snap back to Raiola. Dillon lofts the pass out there, and that ball is caught. Touchdown! Isaiah Nair. Or no, it's intercepted. The officials in the conference in the end zone, and now say touchdown.
The ball was loose as it went to the ground. Illinois came up with the ball. It is an interception, touchback, first down.
Boy, that is a tough break.
That's two interceptions Dillon has in the year that I think he's dropped dimes in there on, really. So, we had the one ball, he threw the fade to Nair in the end zone that, I asked why it wasn't defensive pass interference. He said, hey, you're not going back into him enough. So we really try to emphasize that in the second half, and we made some plays on some deep balls. But that went down the sideline. I mean, we ran right by him, laid it out there. I thought Dillon was superb in many, many ways tonight, So we had a chance to make a play.
Welcome back to Sphere Reaction here on 1620 The Zone. Hour number 2 brought to you by Equitable Bank. We take banking personally, and brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. Join our team at nebraskamed.com/careers. There is so much to get to with our next guest, Stephen M. Sipple from Husker Online and the On3 Network. But Sip, I say to you as I bring you in, 28 plays, minus 21 yards, and 4 interceptions in Nebraska's 8 losses in overtime. It is a statistical improbability that can possibly happen, Sip. How are they so bad in overtime?
I don't know. That was a complete meltdown the other night. I'd have to look back on all those other games to which you refer, but I was startled. In fact, I wrote somewhere that of all the things Michael, how old are you, Michael?
55 years old, Sip.
All right. There's a lot of games that I've covered. I don't remember anything from. In fact, I don't even remember being there.
Yeah.
But this game, there are other games where there's instances I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
And like the punt in East Lansing that missed its mark by 30 yards. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Standing there watching all of that transpire. I will never forget the Friday night game against Illinois, this year's, and what happened in overtime.
Yeah.
I'm still dumbstruck by it. I mean the level of incompetency, and I don't know, the unwillingness to fight in that circumstance was. That's if I were Matt Rule, that would occupy a lot of my thoughts this week.
Yeah. Sip, are you superstitious at all?
Not really. No, I'm not.
Okay. So I'm not either, but I do believe in karma. You know what the last game was that they scored in overtime, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When Pliny beat Iowa.
And then they fired him. And it's the Bo Curse, man. I'm sorry. It's the Bo Curse. They have 4 interceptions, and they have 4 games where they had negative yards. So they have as many negative yard overtimes as they have 4 interceptions. It's crazy to think about. But
it really is.
Yeah.
And I don't know that. Yeah. I don't know how many parallels you can draw. Each game is its own entity.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to say about the other night. There was a reset.
Yep.
And I don't know. I've watched sports. I love sports. And those opportunities, you get a reset. It didn't go well for Nebraska in the second half. It didn't go well for Nebraska late in the game. But my whole thinking was, okay, God, these guys, they get a shot here. A new game, essentially.
Yep.
And maybe they can pull this out. They should be able to pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
They should be able to. And it was a no contest. They got knocked out in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah. And they led 17-10. They led 24-17. There are many moments in that game where they had every chance in the world to win. But in the end, it came down to an offensive line that could not block a defensive front to save their life. Is that your biggest worry? The matchup you saw with, an offensive line that's now got a backup in that's not got any starts against a defensive line that really didn't come in great, but is that one of your biggest concerns?
It's one of them. My biggest concern is what's going on defense right now.
Right.
That's my, and it's not like they've been terrible, but they haven't been anything like we thought.
Yeah.
I don't know what to make of that. maybe it was just a colossal collective misread. Maybe we got sort of duped by last year and the fact that they played it was such a weak schedule of offenses. It wasn't a weak schedule necessarily, but it was definitely a weak schedule of offense.
Quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Bad quarterbacks.
So, you wonder, maybe we just kind of misled ourselves.
I don't think we did, Sip, because I was sitting in the park and I just dropped my kid off at work, and you called me, and we were talking about defense, and I said to you, and you agreed with us, said, who really truly are the difference makers on defense? Do they have enough of those to be really good? And they got a lot of good players, but when you start counting the true difference makers, who made a difference on Friday night, outside of Sierra Wright, who played a great game coming in off the bench, was there really anybody who stood out to you that made, I think Jamari Butler had a couple of plays that I thought so, but did anybody else really stand out to you?
No, not really. Bullock made a good strip sack.
He did.
Of a ball.
Yep.
Strip sack of a ball. Jamari, you're really forcing it to say Jamari in that context. He was fine. He was good.
Yeah.
He did what he should do. That's basically what Jamari did. You're right. And we did establish that. I just thought maybe somebody like Tommy Hill would rise to the next level. Now we come to find out he's probably been battling injury that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
This plantar fasciitis usually just doesn't crop up.
Right.
It's something that occurs over time, usually, I think. And then Ty, who showed signs, I think against UTEP, which maybe wouldn't even count at this point, of going to the next level as a player.
Yeah.
But he didn't show anything like that in the last two games.
Yeah. Steve Sipple joining us here from Musker Online. I love talking to people who are passionate fans of Nebraska. So sometimes they have like really good points, things they see, right? Seriously. And so my buddy said to me last night, he goes, they haven't had the same juice on defense that they had against Colorado. The team that, if you watch the Chasing Three, they were preparing back in February to play this Colorado team. And so they had everything ready to go. They just haven't had the juice the last two games. How big of an issue do you think that is when all of a sudden you're going against teams who are going to run the ball at you and you can't get the fever that you had against Colorado back up again?
Yeah. And so that's definitely a concern. Can it come back,
Yeah.
Will it suddenly rematerialize in the quiet of West Lafayette, Indiana?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I don't know. I can't explain that. And I'm sure Matt Rule's asking these same questions right now.
Right.
You had a Friday night game, the 400 sellout, a jam-packed stadium, loud stadium,
rocking.
Mm-hmm. And you couldn't match Illinois' energy.
Yeah.
Because Illinois played with more energy.
Oh yeah, more juice.
Now sometimes energy comes from knowing that you have a superior scheme, game plan, that you have an upper hand on this team. And also, I try to tell this to Sean and Robin. It seems like they just don't. The guys I work with, they just don't. I don't get it. Sometimes a big crowd like that, actually teams enjoy playing in that, especially teams that don't get to do it very often.
Right.
And it can have. I always say you as an athlete, you'd rather play in that environment than West Lafayette.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think West Lafayette gives you a huge advantage as an opponent coming in there. I'm not saying that Illinois. I just think that they responded very well to that scene.
Oh, you're right.
And I think part of it was they looked like they were the better prepared team. And I think at some point they really understood we are the better prepared team.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives you an upper hand.
Three things I've been going over, Sip, that you have to do to win in the Big Ten. I don't care if it's the Big Ten in 1960, it's the Big Ten in 2024. You have to be able to stop them when they want to run. You have to be able to run when they know you're going to run, and you got to play good special teams. Out of those three things going forward, which one do you think Nebraska has the best chance of fixing?
Running the ball. I think that if you get Mazuka back, I like the interior part of that line.
Yeah.
Dowdell is unrefined.
But you saw his issues though, right? You saw the issues that he had probably in the offseason. He doesn't see daylight very well, and he looks for contact way too much. You got to run to the open spaces.
That's what I mean by unrefined.
Yeah.
But he's very explosive, and he does give pop. And the other running backs are good, not great, good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that part will get better.
I
don't know what to say about the defense.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about the defense right now. I see that Hawaii or Northern Iowa only got 200 yards against Hawaii last night.
Yeah.
And they rushed for under 100. They rushed for over 100 against Nebraska. I don't know. This is a big week for those guys on that side of the ball, and it is a big week for Ed Foley too. I mean, it really is. Because Rule doesn't mess around.
I know.
He'll put pressure on his guys.
Yeah, I keep telling people that he's fired guys who are currently on the staff in the past. He will move on.
Yeah, and feel a little remorse. I mean, it is. I don't know about that part. I don't want to.
Right. Sure. Right.
Emotion, but he does. I mean, the one thing that I think if you're a Nebraska fan that you'd feel that make you feel better is you do have a head coach who will address the issues the best he can.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not going to. This will be a. I don't want to say. It'll be a challenging week for everybody involved.
They are fourth from the bottom in special teams efficiency. They're 99th in the country. The thing is, you can say all you want about Ed Foley. This is where they've been 8 out of the last 12 years. It doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter who the players are. They just don't play good special teams. It's an anomaly.
At Nebraska,
they've had 2 years, really, you can say in the last 10, where they were competent. All the other ones, for the most part, they were in the bottom of the Big Ten or the bottom of the country.
That encompasses 3 head coaches.
Yes, exactly.
The concern you have if you're a Nebraska fan is, can you get the players to Nebraska that you need? The totality of roster.
Mm-hmm.
You can always play the anecdotal game and see if we got this guy, but can you fill out your roster with the sort of players that are needed to win at a high level? That's what you start to wonder about a little bit. Is it the plate? Is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Because I've had coaches tell me before, simple. It's that place. It's hard to do it there.
Yeah. I know Bo said that a lot. Bo would say that off the camera a lot.
Yeah. So I don't know. The other thing is I kind of regret how I sound right now. It's a 1 loss. They're 3-1.
Right.
They can get the next 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a certain reality you have to approach these conversations with, though. I mean, you saw what you saw. You can't. It's hard to mitigate what you saw in the second half defensively from Nebraska. It's hard to mitigate it.
Yeah.
It's hard to mitigate. It's really hard to mitigate the Illinois average 5.5 yards per carry on first down for the game.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
On 19 first downs, Illinois averaged 5.5 yards per carry. That's a systemic failure by Nebraska. I don't know what to say about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as bad as that is, they average basically a first down every passing attempt. Every passing attempt, they basically averaged a first down.
It's startling to watch, right? You were probably sitting in the press box Friday night somewhat startled how open receivers were.
Yes.
How easy Altmaier made it look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's what I go back to. They handled the scene well because their confidence got it rose, I think, pretty quickly. Illinois.
You're right.
They realized, okay, we got them. We got this figured out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know that there was any halftime adjustments. And then I think the offense just didn't get I agree with Matt that the offense just didn't get the ball enough in the second half.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I say this all the time. I know that he has that relationship with Satterfield, and that's the guy he brought in. He wanted to have as his OC. There's still so many moments where I'm sitting up there and I'm thinking, why? Why that play call? Why in that situation are you thinking I've got to do this? And not because it doesn't work, because sometimes it works. But it's just the question is, we watch enough football on a course of a Saturday or a Sunday to say that's not the prudent thing to do. And then he goes, that was a great call by Sat. I'm like, yeah, but was it? Did it help you win? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there seems to be a lack of focus, it seems pretty scattershot sometimes.
Yeah.
But I will tell you this.
Mm-hmm.
How many games do you watch where you don't question the play calls? I find myself doing it a lot. I don't do it. There's a few guys I don't. I don't do it with Lincoln Riley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Sarkisian at Texas.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good play callers out there, though. You watch in the course of a day and you're like, wow, that was genius.
I think Sharon Moore's a good play caller.
Yeah. Hey, you know who had a good play caller? Friday night. They had a pretty good offensive play caller. Did a pretty good job.
I'm sorry, Illinois?
Yeah, Illinois' play caller did a pretty good job. Balanced his run game pretty well. Brought the right running back in for the right situation. Got guys open. I mean, you got to give them credit too for how they called the game.
Really well coached. I got to think Bielema has quite a bit of impact on that. He's heavily involved. Really well coached team, and that's another factor as we go forward.
Right.
The coaching is ultra strong in this league. I watched the USC Michigan game. That's a well coached game.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The Lincoln Riley, and if you're a Nebraska fan, that's a concern. I mean, Lincoln Riley just himself is a concern.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be well prepared, really well prepared.
Michigan game is awesome. That's awesome.
It was a fascinating game.
Yeah.
That game yesterday was.
Yeah.
You could talk about that game for 2 hours.
I could say to you, Sip, and this doesn't happen a lot in anywhere in the world, but I say to you, out of the 20,000 ways you can do something, only one of those things is going to work to win, and Michigan did it. Only one way to win that game. Keep the ball away from them, run the ball when you can, don't turn the ball over. And even though they turned the ball over, they did exactly what it took to win that damn game. It's remarkable.
Yeah, it is. They did good. They did well, but USC though made great adjustments at halftime.
They did. Shut them down.
Masterful. I mean, they did. They changed what they're doing up front on defense.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Lincoln Riley knows what to do on offense. It was a tremendous game, but Sharon Moore did a great job too. And Kalen Mullings? Kalen Mullings, the number 20 for Michigan's up. Is outstanding running back.
Yeah, he was great.
I mean, I don't know, maybe not outstanding.
Well, he made two big runs that won them the game, essentially. One to get into field goal range, and then they scored a touchdown, and then the long run for the touchdown, So those are good enough.
Yeah, he had an outstanding day.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Let me leave you with this, Sip, because I'm talking to Tom Chattel before the game, and I'm kind of saying, what do you expect? And he goes, they're a year away. This is not supposed to be the year that we talk about all these good things. They're a year away, freshman quarterback. And I thought about it at the end of the game. They are kind of a year away. Are we saying things? Are we expecting too much with a freshman quarterback and with the coach who's always had his best success in his third year? Are we expecting too much in the second year?
I don't know that I would go there.
Okay.
A year away, they have seven seniors on defense. The offensive line, you're going to lose so many players. You're going to lose your two best receivers. You're going to lose your center. You're going to lose a right guard. You're going to lose your 6-year tackle on the right side.
Yep.
The way I look at this.
But are you winning with those people? That's the question. Always the question. Are you going to win with those people? Maybe you're better off sometimes with other people.
Good point. But my perception was Rule was approaching this season with such urgency because he realized you got to make it work with these guys, this core of veteran guys. How often are you going to have an average age of 22 on defense?
I know. Yeah.
How often are you going to have an average age of 22.6 years on the offensive line?
Yeah.
It's not going to happen very often.
One of the oldest guys on the defense had a horrible game yesterday, though, and he's a captain. Gifford.
I know.
I mean, he just took bad angles, and he's a better player than that. He was a better player than the week before. The week before that, Again, it's great to have that age, but they're not as athletic as they're going to be crazy enough next year. They'll be more athletic next year. Will they be as good? I don't know, but they'll be more athletic next year. They will be.
It's so bad when we're talking about next year, 4 games.
I know. I apologize. Sip, as always, I appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Sunday and put on a hoodie, man.
Okay, I'll put on a hoodie. Thank you, Michael.
All right, take it easy. Stephen M. Sip, Husker Line. We'll come back. We'll get back to your phone calls, 402-951-1620 here on Severe Reaction on 1620 The Zone.
Fake the handoff. Pressure from behind. The football is loose. Nebraska's on it. Pressure from the backside. Jarred it away from Altmaier. Sierra Wright and Makai Bayer team up to get the football back for Nebraska.
Boy, how about the disguise? Really well done. A corner blitz.
Illinois this season is 2 for 2 on fourth down efficiency.
Yeah, Nebraska gets a chance to sub here because Illinois did. Even Steven, for those of you playing at home.
Robinson exits. Are they going to try and draw Nebraska off to get a little more yardage for the kicker? No, there's the snap. Fourth down and 9. Pressure's on. Altmaier gets away. He's being chased and brought down at the 31-yard line by Nash Hutbaker. And the polar bear wrestles him down, and Nebraska's got the football.
Yeah, the relentless pressure from Jamari Butler, who clearly doesn't feel good, hobbling, but playing his rear end off, flushes Altmaier.
the way I look at games like this is, you're calling plays on offense, defense, and special teams, giving the guys a chance to go make a play, and they made a lot of plays tonight. Problem is Illinois made a lot of plays, and we hurt ourselves with some crucial penalties, and so that was a tough play. But we bounced back. We scored the next drive. Just kind of coming down the end. We just needed to make one more play in the fourth quarter. I know that's we've heard that a lot, right? But that's where we are.
Welcome back to the reaction here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Equitable Bank. We take your banking personally. And brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. Join our team at nebraskamed.com/careers. Yeah, they made a lot of good plays. But you look at the keys. These are the keys I had to the game. I'll get to them really quickly. First one was pretty simple. You had to protect the ball against Illinois. Nebraska did win the turnover battle. It's not a lot of games where Nebraska wins the turnover battle and still loses. They get 2 fumble recoveries. They had the 1 interception that was controversial in the end zone. Raila had 2 other turnover-worthy plays with the fumbles on that one drive. And then Ramir also had a fumble, but it was not lost. I thought it was actually not a catch, but still they counted it as a fumble. Key number 2 was the special teams mismatch, how good their special teams was, whether it was their punter, their punt return, or their field goal kicker. And that ended up biting Nebraska, obviously, with a missed field goal, a punt that was to the wrong side of the coverage that ended up in a 39-yard return. A lot of things went wrong with that. Also, Nebraska only had 6 touchbacks coming in. They didn't reach the end zone going to the south end zone. And I thought, well, that's the wind. But then, of course, when Illinois kicked that way, they kicked it in the end zone. So, again, advantage special teams to Illinois, a big reason why they won the game. And then the last one was contained Luke Altmaier from getting out and making some plays. Great highlight just now. That was one where he broke the pocket, tried to run, got tackled. He made a couple of other runs for first downs. Overall, the run game was very efficient, especially in the second half for Illinois. So it's not a surprise that Luke Altmaier was part of that as well. Let's go back to the phones where Don is this morning. Good morning, Don.
Morning, Michael. How you doing?
Doing pretty well, man. And I like the cool weather, so I'm pretty good.
Yeah, same. So I wanted to ask about the defense.
Mm-hmm.
I know Rule and Tony White both have kind of said, how they kind of wanted to get home with 4 this year.
Yeah.
It seems to me that they're playing more on their heels now and not, showing those like exotic alignments, exotic blitzes. And I mean, at this point, I think it's part of the reason the defense is playing bad. So do you think we can see maybe more of that the rest of the year? I guess that's really all I had. So
yeah, Don, the great thing about the 3-3-5 is, we call it a 3-3-5, but it's a 5-man front. Usually you have 2 guys with their hands on the ground, another guy who's kind of a stand-up, and then you have the 2 linebackers, usually the jack and the other linebacker on the other side. So normally you have 5 guys. And that offensive line has 5 guys. Sometimes it has 6 with a tight end. Sometimes a running back's in. So it's 7-man protection against 5 guys, right? But because they don't know who's coming out of those 5, it does make it really difficult on the offensive line and the protection. Here's the thing, though. If you're not getting pushed up front, Nash, Ty, whoever's in the middle, Jackson on Friday night, whoever's back in the middle, if you're not getting pushed there and they know that they can handle your interior with just the 3 guys in the middle, then that allows their tackles, who are really good for Illinois, to be able to work on whoever's coming from that side, and then your tight end to be able to chip your back to be able to pick up any loose guys. It really can be handled if your interior guys aren't kicking ass, and they have to in the system. They have to. I watched the 3-4 my entire life watching the Saints when they were great. I know it makes it great. When they had an interior guy and a Frank Warren or somebody like that dominating, Tony Elliott dominating, they were much better. If they weren't in the inside dominating, then you had troubles. And that's what happened yesterday. That's what happened Friday night, They could not get pushed from the interior. When they did get pressure, it was usually bringing extra. It was bringing a Sierra Wright. It was bringing some extra pressure, which I like to see. But you can't do it every down because you're going to get burned. You're gonna do that thing, and they're gonna come back, and they're gonna get a wide receiver coming up on a crossing route, and that safety's gonna have to come up, and he's not there in time, and it's a touchdown. So you have to definitely watch out for that. But overall, when you look at the way this defense is set up, it's so much on Ty and Nash to be disruptors in the middle of the field. They have to be. That allows the Cam Linharts, and that allows the Prince Wells, and that allows a Bayor or whoever else to make some plays in the backfield. Well, if they're not making plays, then you're in trouble. And in a way, that's where Nebraska was for much of Friday night. We'll take a quick call, and then we'll take another break because we're a little behind after talking with Sip. Let's go back to the phones. This is where Tony is. Good morning, Tony.
Hey, good morning, Michael. Appreciate the opportunity. I hate to say this, but I really was rooting for Colorado last night.
What? Really?
In the way, oh yeah, you don't want that loss to be cheap.
Yeah.
You want Colorado now to go on and play for a Big 12 championship. That makes your resume look that much better. You want your schedule to look solid.
No, thank you,
And,
Tony. No, thank you. No, thank you, Tony. I have noticed. I don't know. I do not want to see them playing for a Big 12 championship game. I want to see them lose all their games.
That is a tough act to watch, but like I said, for Nebraska's strength of schedule.
Right.
But boy, if you're Baylor this morning, I know we're down, but man, that's got to be tough to lose. And from what I understand, they were doing replays of the miracle catch at Michigan over and over on the scoreboard.
Yep.
Right before that happened.
Yep. And they showed it too. They showed it on the TV coverage too. They said this is what they want to happen right before the first Hail Mary. Yeah.
And I remember I was standing in the Pizza Hut there in Lincoln.
Yeah.
When that play happened, watching it live, like Tip says, you'll never forget where you are for some games, but
I know.
Others,
yeah.
You don't even remember they happened. But
Yep.
Anyway, I just appreciate the show and appreciate you letting us vent this morning. Go Big Red.
No problem, Tony. I appreciate it. I was actually calling a football game in college. Steve McNair was in town playing Sam Houston State with Alcorn State, and I was on the call for that. I was doing color for our TV coverage as that other game was going on, and we got word from the ABC crew who was also calling the game because it was a regionally called game that play had happened, and that and it's funny because you really back then you had no text. You didn't know what was happening. You just couldn't get information quickly. But being that I'm from New Orleans, and you had a guy from New Orleans making the throw, I started hearing it kind of from people who I knew, and they're like, "Hey, did you see what happened in the Michigan Colorado game?" I was like, "No, I didn't see it because I'm calling the game." But yeah, I remember where I was in that moment as well. And I also remember going back and I had taped the game and I wanted to go watch it. I had to go back and watch it, and it cut off before the Hail Mary. Remember when you used to have VHS tapes and sometimes it would cut off? It cut off before the Hail Mary actually happened. So I never got a chance to see the actual play that I had on tape. When we come back, more from you, and we'll also get into some more of the keys of the game. And of course, those two stats we're following all year: finishing drive rate and points per play, offense and defense for Nebraska when we come back here on 1620 The Zone.
I think after last week, you'd have to say that, we really were concerned about the tackling, and the tackling showed up again. It wasn't great today. A lot of guys ripping at the ball as opposed to knocking the ball down. The penalties, I'm not going to talk about the penalty. Even at the end, we got hit out of bounds. I have to see what happened before I can comment on them. But we hurt ourselves, in a day where we needed somebody to make a play, and we made a play. Keese knocked the ball out, or I think that was Keese that knocked the ball out. We recovered it. We go down. We have a chance to win the game and end the game. Those two things were disappointing. But yeah, defensively, I think we have to go back and really kind of look and see what we're doing and make sure we're doing the right things with the guys that we have.
Welcome back to Severe Reaction here on 1620 The Zone, brought to you by Equitable Bank. We take banking personally, and brought to you by Nebraska Medicine. Join our team at nebraskamed.com/careers. A couple things he talked about real quick right there was there are so many moments in this game where you go back and you say, that was a huge moment. That was obviously every game's like that. And it wasn't everyone, because if you think about it, early in the game on a third down, Illinois had a big drop that would have continued to drive. You had the Bullock play where he pulls the ball out. Nebraska wasn't stopping them at all before that play. They were moving up and down the field. So those are big. They also had a couple of plays where they had guys open that he missed, that Altmaier just missed. So I know Nebraska didn't get a whole lot of breaks in the game, but when they did get breaks, they kind of took advantage of them. So you got to give them credit for that. But overall, at the end of the game, the three things I keep talking about, I don't know how Nebraska fixes them unless there are guys that are on the bench who are going to come in and play better. And maybe there are. Look at Sierra Wright. He was on the bench. He came in. He played better. Heck, he played better than the other corner on the other side, too. So in Buford. So maybe he comes in, and maybe there are more guys like that can come in and give them more juice and give them more capability to stop somebody's run game. Listen, they're playing Purdue. Purdue gave up over 300 yards again rushing. They're going to do fine. But Purdue turned around also and rushed for a bunch of yards. Maccabee had another big game, 160-some yards. So they're going to have to stop a run game again. They're going to have to run against a team that can't stop the run. That's great. But going forward, 4 more teams on their schedule have top 20 defenses. 4 of them. USC right now is a top 20 defense. So there's a lot of teams you're going to go against that will be able to stop you unless you can figure out a way for your offensive line to do a better job, especially against games up front where they really struggled against Illinois. Let's go back to the phones before we take a break. That's Brian. What's up, Brian?
Oh, not much. How are you doing?
Doing okay, Brian. Doing all right.
Good. Hey, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the special teams.
Sure.
Well, this probably isn't a possibility, but man, I'd definitely look at Bill Bush, but man, we could use a guy like that. I think he'd be excellent, but probably not going to happen.
No,
I don't know.
No, I'm with you. I think Bill. I would love to see Bill on the staff doing something. I would love to see that.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's just a reality. We will never be that 9 or 10 win team again. I don't know, man. This seems tough to get back.
Yeah, Brian. Thanks for the call. It's only one game. You're also talking about a quarterback who's only playing in his 4th collegiate game. Think about where Dylan Raiola is right now. Think about where Dylan Raiola will be after a full season, another offseason in the strength and conditioning and nutrition program. Think about where he will be this time next year, right? Think about some of those young players who look like they have a ton of potential. Ja'Cory Barney, for example, Jalen Lloyd. It's a lot of them. Think about how they're going to be next year. Think about some of those defensive ends who are still either 1 year or not even a full year in the program. Think about how they're going to develop. So, again, this year's not over, but there is potential. And in the offensive line, I think some of the young guys in the offensive line have shown that when they've come in late in games that they do good things. Gunnar Gatula came in and played well. Segrin played well a couple of weeks ago when he came in. Their guy, Sam Sledge, is going to be a good center. He is going to replace Ben Scott and be a really good center. So there are guys in the pipeline that are going to, and that wasn't a pun, in the pipeline that will play well going forward. So don't think they'll never get to anything. They're right now getting this thing started. They're 16 games into this taking a program that was miserable to moving it to being competitive to moving it to be very good. That's the process they're in. We'll take a break. We'll come back. More of your phone calls and some of the other things that went well, believe it or not. We'll get to those and look ahead to Purdue as well here on Severe Reaction.
Fingers pointing every which way.
The result of the play is a first down for Illinois. After the play, personal foul, unnecessary roughness. Defense number 48. 15-yard penalty. First down.
With Nebraska, that is 7 for 69 in penalties. The bulk have come on the defensive side of the ball.
And for Nebraska, that's the third 15-yard penalty.
Yeah, adds up in a hurry, doesn't it?
Tonight was disappointing. I didn't think we were. Last year, I never felt like we got pushed around too much, and I felt like in the second half, we're playing man to man, and we're literally playing man, and guys are the guys that have that guy man to man. They're trying to make a play, and the guys catching the ball. Even the play they threw to the big old lineman, we're in the 94 number. We can't let that happen, right? We had them stop. So, I love our guys, and as I told them, the narrative has been, hey, they're going to win all these games. My narrative has been just go 1-0 every week, lock in. So we have a lot to learn from this game.
Nebraska really couldn't handle the bunch, especially when it got down by goal line. They just couldn't handle it. They ran the same thing basically twice and wide open both times. And then, of course, the tackle eligible one, too. Defense-wise, Illinois, their 4 running backs, 5.25 yards a carry for 147 yards. We talked about the leaky yardage against Northern Iowa. A lot of people were like, oh, you're nitpicking. Don't worry about that. Illinois pass catchers, 3 to 4 yards of margin of coverage, right? I mean, they were just wide open too many times. The overall secondary grade on PFF was really bad. I mean, basically Sierra Wright and Herzog had pretty good overall numbers, but the rest of them struggled. It's going to be an interesting week to see how they handle the secondary. If Tommy Hill can't play next week, yes, you move Sierra Wright in there, but do we keep Buford as a starter? Do you keep Herzog? Do you keep Gifford? I mean, what do you do with that secondary? A secondary that really struggled. How are they going to change things around? How are they going to make sure that they have guys in there that can make plays in the open field and cover? There's a lot of questions going into next week, a ton of questions going into next week, even though you're going on the road for the first time, playing a Purdue team that is right now ranked at the bottom of the Big Ten in almost every category. Still, you've got to go out there and figure out who the best 11 are on both sides, especially on defense. Real quick, one of the positive things, and I kind of mentioned this way early, but it is a real positive that when you go to your bench and you take 2 of your guys out who are veterans and you bring 2 guys in who haven't played a lot and they play well, that is a positive. Turner Corcoran going out, Gunnar Gatula coming in and playing well, Tommy Hill going out, and Sierra Wright coming in and playing well. Those are positives. That has to be able to happen at a number of positions. You don't want to have injuries, but you're going to have them. And so having backups that can come in and perform well is the key to what we talk about when we say a developmental program. This will always be one. There are people on message boards and in the YouTube comments that throw on the names like Ohio State occasionally, and they're just not the same program. It's just not. Not saying you can't beat Ohio State, but you're not Ohio State. You're never going to have the level of talent they have from top to bottom. But your middle can be as good as theirs, and that can make a difference. Ohio State will lose games to teams that don't recruit as well as them. Hell, Michigan didn't recruit as well as them. They're going to lose some of those games. But if you develop and you make sure that you're good at quarterback, that your special teams is good, and you've got a pass rusher, you have those 3 things, you can beat even Ohio State. You can beat an Oregon. You can beat a number of teams. You can beat a USC. Michigan showed that, yes, you can beat those teams. You got to have those positions solidified, and that'll do it for you. We'll take one more break. When we come back, we'll look deeper into Purdue, how they're doing. That game's on Peacock. If you haven't heard, it's 11 o'clock start. We'll get into that as well, and a couple last-minute notes that I had written down as well when we come back here on Severe Reaction.
But I'm sure our guys will bounce back, and it was a costly night. We had some big injuries. Tommy couldn't go, and then Turner looked like he got hurt pretty severely. So Gunner went in. So we'll have to regroup. After this little 2-day thing.
What was Tommy's injury?
Tommy's got like a plantar fascia inflammation.
Welcome back. Severe Reaction here on 1620 The Zone. Wrapping up another show, our first losing show of the season. Stats that we follow all year long, keeping track of them. What Nebraska needs to be good at. Points per play. Talk about it a lot. It's a great way to judge efficiency. Not good on Friday night. I know you're not surprised. 24 points on 68 plays. 0.352. Currently, Nebraska's dropped all the way to 57th in points per play. That does not include the Northern Iowa game. It's not an FBS game. Doesn't include that. They're at 0.414. I said this season, if Nebraska's going to be successful, they need to be in the top 40. As I mentioned, they're 57th currently. On the other hand, defensively, in points per play against the opponent, they need to be, in my opinion, the top 25 to, again, be good. They're at 24 right now. It's dropped. They're at 0.257, right behind Oklahoma State and Louisville. So they're not in a horrible spot, but they're dropping. And then finishing drive rate. If you don't know, you get across the opponent's 40, how many points do you score? Yesterday, Nebraska went across the opponent's 40, 6 trips, 6 of them. Scored 24 points, easy math. That's 4 points a trip. You need to be at 4.5 or greater, in my opinion, to be a really good team in the Big Ten. You have to be there. Nebraska missed a field goal, made a field goal, and had an interception. So 3 of the 6 drives, they only got 3 points. Not good enough. Illinois had 7 drives, including overtime, 4.42. So really close to the 4.5, more efficient than Nebraska was. Nebraska's got to be efficient there. When you cross that 40, you need to get a touchdown. If you don't and you get a field goal, that's fine. 1 out of 4 times getting a field goal is not bad. If you go 10 times across there and you can field goal, say 3 times, not bad. 4 times, still not bad. But you really want to score 3 of those 4 times you do that, you want to get touchdowns. That's how you be great. That's how you are a great team if you're doing that. And Nebraska is just not there efficiency-wise. So next week they play Purdue. Purdue right now currently, if you look at the rankings, they're basically last in the Big Ten in almost all the efficiency rankings. Again, this week they gave over 300 yards rushing again to Oregon State this time, 340. Hudson Card, their quarterback, who I thought had some potential coming into this season, man, 7 of 17, 56 yards. He had a touchdown and that crazy pick 6 that went off a guy's foot. Purdue did rush for 263 yards against Oregon State. Devin Maccabee, who Nebraska fans know, had 168 yards on 16 carries. Purdue's the lowest-ranked team in the Big Ten in FPI, projected to have 2.5 wins. Offensively, they're only behind Northwestern. And defensively, they are DFL. They are last. They played well on special teams, but other than that, Purdue has been bad. Next week, Purdue, 11 a.m. on Peacock. We'll be back here, of course, Sunday morning, 8 to 12, with Severe Reaction right here on 1620 The Zone.